I noticed a few months prior to my diagnosis that my energy level was different. It diminished, not knowing that it was cancer. It was different. Something was off with my energy level. My family took me to the emergency room. And now when I hear them just talk about what they saw, it's frightening, because they were pulled out of the room to say, your sister and your wife, she only has 1 to 2 weeks. We really need to face this. We really will need to talk to her. This is what we're looking at. My name is Barbara. I was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, adenosquamous carcinoma that metastasized to my liver. I was living in Europe 6 months prior to my diagnosis on an island in Greece, Crete. My life was full of hiking, eating a Mediterranean diet, lots of olive oil, feta cheese, lamb, chicken, potatoes, tomato, everything that you can think of, even the desserts. But it really was a life of health. I hiked every other day. It was not unusual for me to hike, 10 kilometers. Yeah, my life before my diagnosis was a normal, healthy, active life. I went from, hiking mountains, and mountains in Greece are not so tall, but they're tall enough in canyons, to now I'm not so sure if I can do this. As a matter of fact, when I hiked, 7 kilometers towards the end, I struggled. My son had to help me, virtually pull me to to continue. That was unlike me. It was unusual. And I thought, okay, maybe it's my age. I wasn't sure. After I came back from Greece, I returned to the United States at just before Thanksgiving. And so right around that time, I noticed that my back had been bothering me a little bit. And even in Greece, it was bothering me just a little bit, but it became pronounced once I came back to the United States. And I just thought, gosh, I don't know, something was odd. And then it started to creep around my lower tummy area, just below my belly button, almost like the shape of a C, wrapped from my back all the way to my belly button. And so much so that, again, no energy, but this time it was obvious that something was wrong, because I had zero energy, where I would be on the couch all day. I knew that there was something really wrong. It was a tremendous amount of pain. I couldn't eat. I couldn't eat a bite of yogurt. It hurt so much so that it was more than when I gave birth to my son. The pain was tremendous. And so my daughter-in-law, who also works in the medical field, knew that something was wrong, and said to me, boy, you really can't wait 2 weeks to see a GI doctor. You really need to go to the emergency room. This is unlike you. I had CAT scans from my brain to my chest area, to my stomach, to my pelvic area. I had an endoscopy done because I was bleeding. My hemoglobin levels dropped to a 6. So they were rushing to give me blood transfusions. I had 2 of them. I had a procedure done, an emergency, where the GI physician came and catheterized where the bleeding was on my duodenum. So they stopped that bleeding. And so the doctors were trying very hard to keep me alive. So the doctors knew then that I had a pancreatic cancer, because the size of my tumor was so large. It was 8.7 centimeters by 6.7. So it was a large tumor on the tail of my pancreas. Also, it's highly rare. It's an extremely rare case of pancreatic cancer. The one that I have is the rarest of the rare. When the doctors were explaining it to me, they were explaining, and I could see that it was difficult for them to even say it to me, that you have pancreas cancer. I was scared, very scared. The fear, it didn't last very long, because I thought, okay, well, I was unlucky. So the fear turned to starting to try to think logically, or whatever I knew, whatever I thought was logic, that, okay, well, I can beat this. But then the fear came back when I understood the statistics. In my quiet time in the hospital room, I went on my phone and I went down the rabbit hole of researching. And I think that's when the fear really set in, to understand the statistics of the type of pancreatic cancer that I have. The oncologist that I saw at the hospital, I still see today. He's a local oncologist. But I knew, my family, we came to a decision that we needed to get a second opinion. And so I started to look at where is the best place to go. And there are a lot of really fantastic places, but one that we looked at was MD Anderson in Texas. And so we completed the paperwork, everything we needed to do to go see them. However, I became ill again. I was too weak to travel there. So that led to another fantastic place that was closer in Tampa. So I got a second opinion from the Moffitt Center. I had some genetic testing done, and I also had hereditary testing done. Testing included, testing 81 genes. And they found out, the cancer facilities found out that I have some biomarkers that put me in a position that I'm able to take the standard chemo care in addition to immunotherapy. So I tested positive for PMS2 gene and the KRAS mutation, KRAS Q61H. And so this was the treatment plan that the Moffitt had come up with. And that's what I've been taking now for the last 3 months. And I'm really fortunate because the mutations that I have opened up the door for the possibility of my life being extended by 6 to 8 months. That's what I knew 3 months ago. However, now that I've been on the standard chemo plus the immunotherapy, I had my 3-month exam, CAT scan exam, just recently. And it was great news. My CAT scan showed a 49% reduction of my tumor. That now has extended my possibility for my life longevity span into 18 months now. So this is really, I believe in miracles. I don't think I ever really understood what a miracle meant. Early on, I was, driving a couple hours each way to Tampa, the Moffitt Cancer Center, to get my treatments for my standard chemo treatment plus the immunotherapy that I receive. But now I go to the local immunology center, infusion center, to get treatments now. It makes it much easier. It's 10 minutes away versus 2 hours. So I go every 3 weeks. Every other week, I take a cancer pill. My body's tolerating it quite well, except for after I get an infusion, I'm tired, extremely tired, exhausted, as if I ran a marathon for 4 to 5 days. I think the hardest part is, wanting to make it to become a grandmother one day. And my son is young. So I have many years to wait. So I think playing the waiting game for that, I feel like maybe in one way I was cheated. I don't want to feel that way. I don't want to feel like I've been cheated out of life, because I know there are people that have more struggles than myself. But if I set that aside, I think that's probably the most difficult for me, is to realize that that's a possibility. Physically, it's been a big change. I'm not as physically active as I was before. And that's been difficult in the sense that I'm more conscientious and thoughtful going out and participating in activities with others, because I don't want to slow anyone else down. So in that sense, that's where it's been difficult. Emotionally, or with my mind, that was one of the biggest challenges that I had, that I work on. I'm really proud of it. And I said, I have got to figure this out. So what was so important to me was, I thought, what do athletes do? What do folks that are in the military do when they're down and they don't have a choice? They have to get back up mentally. And I said, I've got to figure out what they do so that I can do that. And I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure that out, spending the time learning how to meditate, listening to sounds, certain things that would help me with that. And I was able to do it, and it helped me a lot. Believe in miracles. I think, to me, that's such a big word. I don't know how it is for others, but I would like my story, the message to be sent that you really have to believe in a miracle. Even though you might think you know what a miracle is, unless you've had a terminal illness before and fought it, then okay, you understand it. But if you've never had that, and this is your first time with the fear, the pain, emotionally, or maybe not even the pain, just emotionally what you're going through, finding out that you have cancer, any cancer, but pancreatic cancer, there's life ahead for you. And I would say, I would want folks to know, to believe in a miracle you haven't seen yet, because it's there. You have to be patient and push through it.